Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for joining me in the afternoon. For many, many years in the afternoons, and I've done pretty much over 25 years of radio, every segment of radio. For many years, former Congressman John Campbell, former State Senator John Campbell, former State Assemblyman John Campbell, former auto titan dealer John Campbell, lived in California and was my guest host and frequent guest. In fact, he was the favorite guest host of the founder of this Salem Media Network, Ed Atzinger. And John Campbell was a pain in the neck for me, but he's a dear friend. John, welcome back. I got to tell you, in studio with me is our mutual friend Len Frank, who you met at our home many, many times, because he had to evacuate from his home, which is still standing, so that's good. And I was going to have fun with you today, but it's not a fun time in California. When I read your note last night that Los Angeles is to you as Warren is to me, it really sunk in. You really must be feeling what's going on in L.A. And then I read your Look Through the Chaos newsletter. Tell people what you wrote and why you wrote it.
Yeah, Hugh, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I lived there for the first 23 years of my life. I met my wife, the captivating Mrs. Campbell, there. She was the girl across the street. We were married in Los Angeles. I went to college, undergraduate at UCLA, master's at USC. And, when I grew up there in the 50s, the 60s, 70s, I just thought it was the best place on planet Earth. I mean, I mentioned in my Look Through the Chaos piece that I wrote that I remember when the Randy Newman song, I Love LA, came out, I believe in 1983 or 1984. And I remember having it top down in the car and driving Pacific Coast Highway and playing that song. And my best friends in high school lived in the Pacific Palisades. So I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Palisades. And their house, their family sold it years ago. Actually, they sold it to Burt Bacharach, of all people, who, obviously he passed away, doesn't own it now, but it didn't burn. But I know all those areas that did, and very much about the Pacific Palisades. And, it was such a great place. It really was. And with Hollywood and all that, I remember going to dinners with my parents and Frank Sinatra be sitting over there. And my uncle worked for 20th Century Fox, and I saw My Fair Lady filmed. And there was just so much going on in LA, and it was exciting, and it was a place of discovery, and it was a place of innovation. And it was, you look at Neil Diamond, who wrote that song, I Am, I Said, and he says, LA's fine, but it ain't home. New York is home, but it ain't mine. He says that the rents are low, palm trees grow, the rents are low. And so if the rents aren't low in LA anymore, a lot of things he says about LA at the time aren't true anymore, but it was such a great place, but they've ruined it. And they haven't ruined it because the weather went bad. There's been fires forever. As you mentioned yesterday, back to the 1500s, there's always been fires there.
Do you have a memory of the Bel Air fire, by the way, John Campbell? 1961, 464 homes burned. Do you have a memory of that?
I do. I was only 6 years old then, but I do have a memory because it was a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal, and Bel Air was a big deal at the time. And my parents had a lot of friends that lived in Bel Air and lost homes in Bel Air during that time. So I remember that. And usually after these big events, things change because people say, "Hey, we can't have this again. We can't do this again." And they made some changes after that. But government in California has forgotten a lot of those lessons. LA has been killed by government, which is incompetent, which is woke, and which is corrupt. And those are the three words I would use to describe the governments in Los Angeles and also at the state level in California.
Now, I want people to understand, you served in the state legislature for how long?
5 years.
So 5 years you were legislating, and so you know firsthand how bad it is up there. And there's super majorities of Democrats. The Republicans can stand up and shout, but they really get rolled right over. We had good governance until Pete Wilson left in 1998. Unfortunately, Arnold had a glass jaw and couldn't change anything. He was there for 6 years, but it's been Democratic rule unbroken now for 6 plus 8, 14 years of unbroken supermajorities and a Democratic governor. Is there anyone to blame besides Democrats?
No, there absolutely is not. This is all government. Government has taken paradise and destroyed it and ruined it. And not just what we saw the other day, but do you know there's as much oil underneath California as there is underneath Texas? But they don't allow anybody to drill it. What if they did? Think of the jobs. And they tax it like Texas does. Think of the revenue they would have. Think of what they could do. But they won't do that because of their worship of this ridiculous climate change theories that they have. And so it has entirely been ruined by government and government action, particularly severely in that last 14 years that you've mentioned. And it's been all Democrats, as you say, supermajority in the legislature, Democrats up and down the state at every level of government. Now, there's a few cities and a few counties, with Orange County, some in San Diego, et cetera, the inland in the Central Valley, where some Republicans exist at the local government level that have some power. But the state always comes in and tries to overrule them. The city of Huntington Beach, which has a conservative legislature, just recently voted to have IDs be shown to vote. Imagine that. The state of California, with Gavin Newsom, has come down on them and is suing them and saying, you can't do that. It's against state law. So even those few Republicans who have a little fiefdom of control somewhere, the state is coming in with their heavy hand and saying, no, you're going to do it our leftist, neo-Marxist way. We're not allowing you to do it your way.
Now, John Campbell, I've been asked by Hillsdale College to write for Imprimis an essay on what happened here. And I'm going to begin with the Endangered Species Act, the Coastal Act, the 1972 initiative that established the Coastal Commission, and the Clean Water Act, the federal agencies, the state agencies, the regional. Government gridlock is what happened here. And government gridlock has empowered the most extreme environmental activists to stop the clearing of coastal sage scrub and other forests. Now, coastal sage scrub is a unique feature of the California landscape, but it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. If you don't cut it, it's gonna burn. And as you said, for 500 years we've got records of this. Do you think we'll start the equivalent of mowing the grass in California now, though the barn door is open and a lot of cows are out?
I would love to say yes, because logic says the answer should be yes. Emotion says the answer should be yes. Simply reactivity, if you will, says the answer should be yes. But so many times I have hoped in California that something would get these people to back off their extreme nonsensical positions, and it never does. I mean, you talk about water. Gavin Newsom tore down 5 dams. There are 5 less dams in California than there were 50 years ago when there were 20 million less people. And he bragged about it. And what is this about? One thing, this national show, people listening, you'll hear about the Delta smelt, and that this is a fish. It's just like you're saying, coastal sage, that the environmentalists try to protect. And so they don't allow dams, they don't allow you to save any water, they don't allow you to do any of this kind of stuff to save the Delta smelt. The Delta smelt is not a native fish to California. It was brought in during the gold rush in 1849 by the miners. I can make an environmental argument that the Delta smelt is invasive and we should be killing it
Invasive
off.
species. Stand by. We got to go to a break. I'll be right back with John Campbell. Now, I want to emphasize, I'm back with John Campbell. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I want to emphasize with John to the audience, John really is an Angelino. When I first got out here, 1989, it wasn't long thereafter I met John and the captivating Mrs. Campbell. We attended the same church. He had a beautiful voice. I turned around and I said, you ought to be in the choir. He went into the choir. We're pretty good friends. John is an automobile guy. I am not. He's a car guy. I think that's a ridiculous waste of time. But he loves the state, and he lives in Arizona now. Why'd you leave, John?
Everybody's going to say taxes, and taxes were certainly part of it. But that's not all of it at all. It's that everything in California is more expensive. Everything. Or not just land, real estate. Oreos are more expensive. And it's because of the regulation. I bought a McDonald's meal this few years ago here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I then flew to California and bought the same meal in Costa Mesa, California. It was 70% more. 70% more. Why? Because the beef costs the same. That's not the difference. But their insurance is more, their rent's more, their environmental costs are more, their regulatory costs are more, their minimum wage is more. You go through it all. Everything they have is more, and they got to put it in the price of the burger. So it's not just the taxes, it's everything, but it's also the freedom. It's that there's so many things you can't do. Now, I'm a member of the NRA. I'm a gun owner. California, you have to have a license to buy ammunition, and you can only buy ammunition for a gun that you have licensed in California with that caliber. I mean, this stuff is unbelievable. The rules that you own property, you want to build on it. The regulation, the hoops you have to jump through to build on your, and let me assure you, whatever you want to build, you will not be able to build it. They will make you do something else. They pull freedom back, put regulation out, make everything more expensive, and it's less free. You just put all that together, and the weather's great, the views are great, the landscape is beautiful, but it doesn't make up for bad government. I'm sure it's beautiful in Haiti too. I don't want to live there.
Why do you think that every other state in the union was done counting their votes before California, and not by a little, but by a lot? Like weeks. It took weeks for California to count its vote. Why is that?
Yeah, another good reason. Not only do you not have to show an ID in California, it is illegal to show an ID. Let me give you an example. Let's say I go in and vote, and I say I'm Hugh Hewitt. I can vote for you. They cannot ask me for an ID. Except then you come in and you say, well, I'm Hugh Hewitt. And they say, well, you've already voted. And you say, no, I haven't. Look, I'm Hugh Hewitt. Let me show you an ID. And no. We can't say that. We can't say that. We can't say that. You can vote, and we'll show it as provisional, and then they'll throw it out. The other thing is during that month after they vote, this is a period they call curing votes. That's their term, not mine. I mean, I can't believe they curing ballots. And what they're doing is they're searching around looking for ballots to add on to things. Well, this enables people to come in with ballots long afterwards. And there's many of anecdotal stories about these ballots. They're filled out just for the top of the ticket and maybe Congress.
Hold on for a moment. I got to come back on the network. Congressman Campbell, stand by. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, broadcasting today from Studio West, the Relief Factor studio out west, as I'm teaching for a semester, so I'm back in California for 3 months. Congressman John Campbell is my guest, and you can catch the entire interview at my YouTube channel if you are so inclined, or you can listen to it on the podcast tomorrow. John, this is the most important question I've asked you. Will it change? It's such a devastation. It's so bad. One estimate of the losses, which might be high, according to some other smart people, is $250 billion to $300 billion. The lowest estimate is $50 billion. It's going to break the FAIR Fund, the California option to insure your home. Other insurers were either leave. I expect to have my price doubled on my house in California. What do you think?
I have some hope that politically things might change. And I can only pray that hope is not misplaced. People have been asking me since I left, and it was 9 years ago that I moved out of California. And people have been asking me since I left, John, what will ever happen to change? And I always say, I think there's two things. One is that a personality comes along, a Donald Trump, a California Donald Trump, if you will, a transformative personality that comes in as governor, takes over, and starts to move things in the other direction. The way we're seeing Donald Trump move the whole country. I mean, my gosh, Coca-Cola gave him an award, one of the wokest companies out there. So as you see things change, that's one thing. And let me address that before I get to the second. Trump has said he thinks there's a chance in 2026 that a Republican could win. And so that means the Donald is paying some attention to this. And is it a Peter Thiel? I don't know the guy from Adam, but certainly he's very close to Trump. He's a billionaire. He's highly successful. Is it somebody like that maybe could come in and turn things around? I don't know. That's one chance. The second, because the question is who. The second thing is, when you hit rock bottom, you got to look up and you got to think, okay, I can't stay here anymore. We got to do something different to get me out of the bottom of this pool. And so that may be happening now in California. There are some indications of that. I'm seeing, again, anecdotal evidence of people who are
Well, you and I are both anecdotal evidence. Now, evidence of anecdotes that's it. Now, anecdotal evidence is evidence of anecdotes. We both left. I'm a Virginian, you're in Arizona now. We both left. We couldn't stand it anymore. You come back occasionally to visit grandchildren. I come back to teach every other year. But it's just, I couldn't stand it anymore.
Right, but we can't vote. I can't vote and you can't vote. So you and I changing our minds, well, it wouldn't change our minds, but voting the right way doesn't help. We need people in California to vote the right way, who live there and vote there. And so I've seen, anecdotally again, people that are Democrats that are left have said, okay, this is it, I'm done. We need something different. This isn't working. We got to vote. We got to vote something different. If you look at the 2024 election, Donald Trump still lost by 20 points. But 4 years earlier, he lost by 30. So in the legislature, Republicans in the House and the Senate, the Assembly and the Senate, each gained a seat or two. Now, the Democrats still have a supermajority, but they actually gained a seat or two in the legislature. So maybe people will say, you know what? This is just flat incompetence. I've always been a Democrat. I vote Democrat because Democrats are for the little guy, Democrats are for abortion, and Democrats are for freedom, or whatever they think they're voting for when they're voting for Democrats. They're really voting for incompetence and corruption.
Do they know? Do you think the average voter understands the pension-seeking behavior of the vast state and local and regional bureaucracy? Because that's really what entombs California. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of government workers who are seeking their pensions, their fully guaranteed but fully unfunded pensions. Do you think voters understand that?
No, they absolutely do not. And part of the reason for that is that the press in California, as in many, not just in California, is very compliant with the left. And there, I think, are 8 major newspapers, all the TV stations and all that sort of stuff. And with very few exceptions, they're compliant with the left. So they don't report on any of that because it looks bad. You got these government employee unions putting tons of money to the politicians who then determine their salaries and their pensions. And it's just a vicious circle. And so they get paid more, they get even bigger pensions, and they keep funneling that money back to keep those same politicians in office. And so, no, people do not know about that. So
well, I do know one thing. I'm glad the show moved so that we can bring you back. I know that you wake up at noon now as you get older, and that you're a noon right. You would never do the morning show, but I'm very glad to have you back, Congressman Campbell. Will you guest host when I'm gone?
Huh? There's no werewolves running around this time of day. The sun is up.
The sun is up. John Campbell, thank you.